Welcome. This is a Vistic medical training for good documentation practices. Every employee is required to follow these guidelines to ensure that our customer and regulatory requirements are satisfied. The purpose of this procedure is to ensure that documents are consistent, traceable, legible, accurate, and more importantly, compliant. Remember that our customers and regulatory agencies will constantly audit our documentation. If they can't read it, or is not clear, it may be considered not done. Also, regulatory agencies expect consistency on how we handle documentation. What is GDP and why do we need to comply? GDP stands for Good Documentation Practices. Our customers are regulated by the FDA, which means our customers expect us to follow the same guidelines. The Device History Record, or DHR, which consists of routers, inspection sheets, certificates, etc., is just as important as the parts themselves. Remember, if the documentation is unacceptable, the parts may be rejected, even if they are machined perfectly. These requirements apply to all engineering, manufacturing, and quality documents. If it has a document control number, form, SOP, etc., or job number on it, then this procedure applies to it. Every Vistic employee shall follow these guidelines and take steps to resolve discrepancies if they occur. Check documentation as you receive it. Remember that you are the customer when you receive documentation or parts, and should reject them if something looks wrong. Prior operations in the router or fields and forms must be filled out before you start the step. If a documentation error is noticed, first try to resolve it with the person who last performed the operation. If that's not possible, immediately alert your supervisor. When your operation is complete, fill in the necessary documentation as it's completed in real time. Real time means as soon as it happens, not a day later. Try to use plain, simple words, and common sense. Try to limit the use of company-specific terms, such as special jargon, or something that only Vistic employees would understand. Use page numbers to address multiple page documents to alert the reader that there is more to the current page. And simply be organized. Entries need to be clear and legible, so try not to scribble. Use permanent black or blue ink. Do not use pencils, correction fluid, or correction tape. Do not use data marks for measured data, such as inspected dimensions. Oops, forgot something. Enter your information and the current date and provide clarification to the missing information. Use footer notes if there is not enough space. This can be done simply by writing a circled number next to the entry and adding the same number on the bottom of the page with the clarification or correction. Do not leave any empty spaces. This includes headings and forms or unused entries in inspection sheets. When the entry is not applicable, such as tool ID for a visual inspection, make sure you write NA. If it is not clear why the field is not applicable, write an explanation and a footer note, initial and date. If you did not inspect for some reason, write "did not inspect" or DNI, and write an explanation at the bottom of the page. And of course, initial and date. Do not use post-it notes for important information such as CNC programs, job number, extra yield material for stock, material heat numbers, etc. Write these right on the router. If you are adding one-time information pertaining the current job, for example, use blue or black ink. Examples are special processes performed, non-conformances, notifications, extra material yield, etc. And yeah, always initial and date your notes. Only use red pen when requesting a permanent change to a document, router, inspection sheet, etc., and initial and date. Red lines or additions will be reviewed by the appropriate person to update the document later, through a review process. How to correct a mistake. The original entry needs to be legible. Draw a single line through the original entry. If a correction is not obvious, an explanation of the correction is required. If there is no space, use a footer note. Initial and date your correction. Do not scribble over the mistake, and try not to correct over text or numbers. Use a simple, consistent date format as shown, with a month, day, and year format. Enter time in either 24-hour format, or use AM or PM to clarify whether the entry was performed in first, second, or third shift. If you have an electronic signature, do not share it with anyone. Electronic signatures are the same as pen signatures. All employee signatures and initials should be recorded in the employee signature and initials log, located in the conference room. Please make sure that your name is logged right after this training. Let's take a moment to review the following. Parts will be rejected by the customer if the documentation does not follow these guidelines. The customer is not just paying for perfect parts. The customer is also paying for perfect documentation. You, the customer, are responsible to check the documentation is correct when you receive it. You may not ignore the error if it was done by someone prior to you, your supplier. Remember that it is ultimately your responsibility, not the person who made the mistake, if you let the document slide by you. And lastly, be a coach to coworkers, reminding everyone about the importance of documentation discipline. Thank you for completing this training. If you have any questions or suggestions, please contact management.